You know, I've been wondering, and it just hit me, I've been wondering, where's the amperage coming from? Or through what is the better question to ask. Through what is the amperage coming from? We can't answer where the amperage is coming from because it doesn't make any sense. It's not a pinpointed question. But through what is it coming from, or through what is it coming, is a much more pertinent question. I mean, it's much more focused, and I think it's the core, the iron core, laminate transformer core in this Barbaso and Leal device through which the amperage is coming. It's like a gateway, and it's all a question of setting up the right voltage characteristics for it to come through. And because it's distinctly separate, it's a complicated setup with 3 different loops, and they don't short circuit to either one of themselves, then the voltage is maintained. Because the voltage is maintained in 2 different loops, the primary and the grounding loop, while the secondary loop is what's channeling all the amperage from the iron core to the load. So 2 coils take care of the voltage difference between them, and the third one takes care of the amperage. So Tesla did say he could make radium for $1 a pound, and radioactivity was a kind of automatic doorway, so it takes less effort. So if nuclear physicists have figured out for the Defense Department how to use radioactive substances to directly access a portal through themselves of grabbing amperage from the ether and channeling it into a circuit, then by all means they probably do have nuclear-powered submarines in a sense, because it's a lie. It's kind of like Stanley Myers saying that his car is water-fueled when in reality it's not. It's water-filled. He puts water in the tank, but it's not water-fueled. For the most part, it's air-fueled, water-filled. So if nuclear substances don't power the submarines, they just make it possible for the amperage to come into the physical plane of a circuit, then, hey, who's going to catch them on that little minor fib? So, where was I getting at? So all transformers have the possibility of channeling energy. That's what I was getting at. For every 200 pounds of iron, 1 extra horsepower is added to the system. So there's an alternative way to get more energy into the Barbaso and Leal patent, and that is to increase the size of the iron core, magnetizable transformer core. That's how to get more amperage into the system. Oh, but that doesn't tell you how to get more volts into the system. That's right. So at least now I know how to regulate the amperage part, and we know from Clarence's experience where to get the voltage from. More grounding rods, or more spread. Yeah, more spread of the grounding rods. Well, that's one way. He said the other way was to use 2 or more in series, and one feeds the next, so the input voltage is going to matter. And that's why he stepped up. Oh, but he had too high a frequency. He did have a higher input voltage. Yeah, because he was trying to use shortcuts. There's no easy short. Well, I don't know about that. He's working on the photovoltaic, which sounds like an easy shortcut. Anywho, so that's right. He's originating with a DC voltage difference, not an AC voltage difference on the input side, on the primary coil. Okay, so it needs more thought, but it tells me exactly what I was doing ain't bad. At my earthinglife.info line of experimentation, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was merely accessing more amperage. But the volts are very low, because I don't even have a Barbaso and Leal setup. I have a Vinny setup which falls extremely short of Barbaso and Leal, but it was moving in that direction. Can't be totally off center, just mostly off center. Interesting though. If I like to call capacitance of voltage capacitance, then that would be the mass of the iron core, transformer core, which has to be activated by, actually no, all you need is a load. That's true, a load to create the demand to pull the amperage in at whatever voltage your circuit is set up to run on. I mean, that's strictly almost arbitrary that we have our devices set up for 120 voltage or 240 voltage. Well, maybe it's not arbitrary, but I mean it is arbitrary in a sense. As far as the circuit is concerned, it doesn't care. It's only our devices that care, one way or another, because they're not running off of anything fancy schmancy like radiant energy on a single wire. They're using the normal 2-wire setup, so it's no small wonder that they have their various restrictions, and we're trying to cater to them. Oh God, what a mess. Maybe that's why Nathan Stubblefield's earth collector worked so well, because it was not supplying amperage and voltage, it was supplying radiant energy, maybe, which is far less demanding on circuit. I mean, devices are far less demanding upon the radiant energies being supplied to them as compared to voltage and amperage. Well, it doesn't function as a battery when it's functioning in its full mode, the Nathan Stubblefield earth collectors, so there's no need to worry about voltage and amperage. So this is a whole nother layer here, that apparently Barbaso and Leal's patent is potentially capable of opening up. And that's why nobody can understand Nathan Stubblefield's device, because they don't know how you can possibly access radiant energy without being fancy schmancy Tesla version. Well, Nathan Stubblefield did precede Tesla, so why would Tesla's method be superior? Because being man-made, it dominates. And Nathan Stubblefield's system only worked in the country, where there was no interference from power stations affecting the ground energy. Grounding their systems in the earth and messing up with Nathan Stubblefield's setup. That's why all his various experiments failed in, I guess it was New York City, but they always worked in the countryside. So Nathan Stubblefield's system is a completely different system that can be overwhelmed and overridden by man-made electricity, and Tesla's system is designed to fully immunize itself against any artificially man-made condition, while Nathan Stubblefield's is not. His is very vulnerable. So that's good to know, but that doesn't mean it can't be corrected. And you know what? I think I know the answer. That's right. That's right. It's the Evie Gray methodology that Richard. No, we're not talking about Wagner. Richard Hackenberger made use of to turn the chassis and the support structures, the support pieces for the internal coils. I guess they were rotor coils, my memory fails me. And flushing air through the interior to regulate, to prevent arcing, to maintain polarization between the chassis and the supporting pieces of some of the internal coils, so that a capacitor, an umbrella capacitor, can be set up to what? Encapsulate the electrostatic field, to make it immune from exterior influences. It works both ways. You get on the good side, the friendly side of the FCC, not to broadcast electrostatic interference, messing up radio broadcast transmission and reception, but you also create a shield for yourself to prevent the exterior world from having an electrostatic virally inoculating influence upon the device, which most of the time is not a problem. because most devices are not electrostatically set up yet. The electrostatic field of the EV Gray motor prior to the FCC, or up to the FCC raid, was vulnerable to attack. But because the FCC puts a stop to such things, they never had to worry about that. Instead, it was the FCC worrying about the EV Gray motor creating a kind of pollution, electrostatic pollution, in the local environment. So it's more than just energy gain, and it's more than just keeping the FCC happy. It's about immunity against pollution, which in our world we have so many different kinds of. And if we're... Oh, you don't say anything, just my belly. So many different kinds of pollution, although we don't have to worry about electrostatic pollution because the FCC steps in. But still, it's good to know that the very thing that could boost the energy value of a system could protect it. And because that's what Nathan Stubblefield had overlooked. He did have a 3-coil system, but it was so naturally endowed that he never thought to protect himself from anything, and he never figured that part out. He just shriveled up into a ball and gave up. He didn't attack the challenge. He didn't move to the city, for one thing. If he would have moved to the city and taken his quest with him, he probably would have figured it out. So, Mother Nature provided us with Tesla, a generation or so, half a generation following, subsequent to Nathan Stubblefield, and Tesla figured it out. What Nathan refused to figure out. So he died a humbled man, but whatever. We have Tesla to thank for taking it the next step. Of course, we lost everything. So EV Gray comes along, duplicates that process in a general, analogously general format. I'm making a broad generalization here. And then we lose EV Gray. But Mark McKay comes to the rescue, generically at any rate. So, it's good to know that this situation has been utilized. Patrick Kelly talks about it, and sort of, in one of his PDF files. Which one? Oh, the Vladimir Utkin, or Utkin? No, Utkin. Vladimir Utkin, I think is the name. File, the PDF file, Vladimir Utkin. Anyway, so it is possible that we've seen it in recent memory, socially speaking. But these are the kinds of problems that are being addressed, or need to be addressed, let's put it that way, have to be addressed. So it's not just, let's go for unity. No, we got the FCC to worry about, for a very good reason, because they're worrying about pollution. Specific type, though. They don't worry about AC pollution. Oh, Becker are worried about that. They're worried about electrostatic pollution, radio interference. Oh, because they don't want anybody evoking the Hutchison effect. I always used to keep seeing Hutchinson. Oh well, I had it all wrong. Hutchison. There's no 2 N's, there's only 1 N. Final N. So they don't want anybody invoking the Hutchison effect. That's the real reason for that humongous second raid on the EV Gray lab. Yeah, so we do want to stay on their good side, but that doesn't mean we're not using a recycling effect similar to the SERPS device, in which we're, think of it this way, it's an indirect kind of SERPS analogy because it's not really the same thing, but it's similar in the end result. That is, that the energy loss that would have occurred in any device, given the fact that it puts out an electromagnetic field, it's also putting out an electrostatic field. That's the portion of the circuit that's inefficient. So if we take some of that inefficiency and add it back into the circuit, because now it's encapsulating its electrostatic losses, for the most part, maybe not losing so much of it, and that is retained to boost the electromagnetic behavior of the system, then it needs less power to run itself at the same level of output. And that already raises its COP slightly, even though all we did was raise its efficiency. So Tesla always tried to improve efficiency because that does make a marked improvement in COP. So it's nothing really fantastical to make use of an electrostatic field encapsulating the interior of the device by putting a chassis around it and making that the outer floating plate of a capacitor in which both plates are floating. And the dielectric is regulated by compressed air flowing through the interior to prevent arcing, which would depolarize that capacitance and mess up the capacitance that we're trying to create. So there's a lot of good motivations for doing this, not just improving performance and diminishing, under reducing costs, reducing energy sourcing to run the thing. So it can run on less energy, making its COP of performance even better. That's right, the ratio would be different. So I guess that's enough said, enough blathering, but it certainly comes to mind because I think Tom Bearden brought this up. I don't think I'm making this up. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Tom Bearden brought it up that he had a solid-state device that was used a magnetic core, a magnetizable transformer core. I think it's called the MEG, maybe? MHE, or I don't know. MHG, whatever it was, whatever. Didn't he say that the iron core is the portal? That would make sense, because that's what Nikola Tesla said. Oh, wait a minute. Clarence said the best grounding rods are the copper-plated steel rods. And he's adding more rods, he's adding more iron. What if all you have to do is increase the size of your transformer core and just stick with one grounding rod? Then you improve your amperage. I thought it was amperage you're improving, though. But what's horsepower? Is that voltage? No, it's amperage, isn't it? Oh dear. Oh dear, wait a minute. You know what Don Smith said, and he got me corrected? I had it backwards. Magnetism is the equivalent of amperage. I kept saying it's voltage. Oh boy, am I backwards. It's the electric field that's voltage. That makes sense. Duh, the electrostatic field is voltage. How could I must have been contradicting myself throughout all my videos. Saying one thing one video and then something else in another video. Oh boy. So, now that I've been corrected. So, adding more iron adds more magnetizable substance, which potentially adds more amperage. Yet it's the voltage that goes up when you add more grounding rods. Why is that? Wait a minute, I better think about this. Okay, this is not an answer, this is a speculation. My guess, looking at just two of Donald Smith's videos in which he talks and explains some examples of how to create a simple free energy device. He keeps saying that, he keeps making use of high voltage transformers. And my guess estimate is that the high voltage behavior of these transformers is a reaction to the presence of a large amount of amperage. And the first thing it does, it hides it. It says, oh, I don't want you to see that. And so it raises the voltage and lowers the amperage, because if it really gave you what you wanted originally, it would be obvious. The amperage right there in your face. But what does amperage do? It burns. It destroys. And so actually, Mother Nature's doing us a favor by trying to protect ourselves. Oh, wait a second. Are you ready to handle it? You didn't let me know if you're ready to handle it or not. So she causes a reaction to occur within the transformer to cause its initial response to be very high voltage. So it must be true. The transformer is a porthole into free energy. I've seen this before, in which you use a transformer to magnetically saturate another transformer so that the second transformer is enhanced, the behavior of the output of the second transformer is enhanced by saturating it, magnetically saturating it with the action of the first transformer. So these really are portals. Wow. Wow. Interesting. So the whole... God, we're busy thinking about grounding rods, when in reality it's the core transformer. That's the core of the device. Uh-oh. You know what else? Holy crap. The Earth is behaving like a transformer in so far as that is how the Barbaso and Leal device sees the Earth. It's a transformer core. Really? What else? You know why I say this? Because the grounding cord, they call it the Captor loop. When the grounding cord is wrapped around the continuous loop, it's only wrapped around a couple times. Well, what does the continuous cord do? It's wrapped around the transformer core a couple of times. So they both have this very loose relationship with the core. They both do, for a reason, because they're cousins. But they do have two different functions. One supplies the load, and the other goes to the Earth to get it. Or so, we say. To get the voltage, anyway. So, the grounding wire is an extension of the transformer core. Just like I had been presupposing or speculating that if the transformer of Tesla's trimetal generator is bolted to the floor of a U-boat, it gets to make use of all the mass of the iron of that U-boat and add that iron to the mass of the transformer core. So now all of a sudden the transformer core has been added all these hundreds of pounds of iron, and then Tesla could say, oh, give me a bigger U-boat and I'll give you more horsepower. Well, you're going to need it. So, he did not say where the iron comes from. So somehow, the iron grounding rods, coated with copper, spaced 3 feet apart, the 56 grounding rods that Clarence is using, is matching itself somehow in resonance with the transformer-like functionality of the Earth itself. That's what it's tuning itself to. It's tuning itself to the iron of the Earth. And that's why it doesn't matter if your grounding rods reach the water table, because that's not the point. The point is coupling. You're trying to couple your device's core to the Earth's core. A new use for lava magma. Yes, whatever use it is, it's the transformer core of the Earth. And everything else on top are the windings and whatnot of this. So the Earth is a big transformer. Well, if transformers are portals for amperage, then theoretically you could get as much amperage as you want out of the Earth. But you know what? If you took too much, you'd probably split the Earth apart. Especially if you did it in a kind of beat kind of way. It'd be like striking a bell, and if it is a hollow shell, you could break the Earth apart. Well, we won't go there. But, are we going there? Somebody, this might be ridiculous to pursue this Captor design if it's not done stringently, strictly, exclusively according to Nathan Stubblefield's premise. Because there you're working with nature. Trevor Constable said trees are rainmakers. They're the natural rainmakers of the earth. If we had more forests, we'd have more rain because trees make rain. And then you don't have to resort to Trevor Constable's techniques, nor William Reich for that matter either. So, if we don't use trees as the grounding rod, then we're going to get away with murder. And if the grounding rod is putting 60 cycles into the earth, then the tree's not going to like it. It'll probably fry or die. Maybe not fry, but it'll probably die. And then we know that if we're killing the trees, we're killing the earth. I knew it. I knew AC was the wrong way to go. Yeah, there's no wiggle room here. It isn't room to be nice. I don't want to offend anyone. We don't want to do what we did to the planet that no longer exists, the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. We don't want to do that again. Okay? Eric? You know, funny, when I initially wrote a letter to Eric Dollard asking him about this concern of mine, he said, no problem, you're mixing things up. And now, he came out more recently, about a year ago, within the past year, and he said, oh, that's right, it was the last conference I went to, 2015. He said, no, you can't. Somebody asked him point blank, and he said, yes, you can destroy the earth. That's why I don't believe in free energy, because everybody are such energy hogs, gluttons for energy. We'd destroy the earth if we satisfied everybody with free energy. So, because we do it wrong. You have to work with nature, not against her. And the tree is the test. It's like the canary that miners used to take down into coal mines. It's the acid test to make sure you're doing it right. And not just worrying about ergonomically the bureaucrats in Washington, the FCC. No, you got to worry about Mother Nature first. The FCC is secondary. Then you worry about the FCC. But you have to worry about our our irresponsibility at polluting our environment. And this is just a new form of pollution, but much more powerful and much more destructive, ultimately. So, we do have to bring back Nathan Stubblefield's methodology on the one hand, yet take what we learned, because the way I see it is everything we do man-made is just a laboratory experiment. True civilization works with nature completely and never does anything contradicting nature. So everything Tesla did, in a sense it's best that he didn't succeed, because it's not natural in the format that he provided. 3-phase power. Eric Dollard said nature works by 4 phases. I said, what? Well, there's 60 cycles. It's not that it's a slow beat that it's bad for you. That's not true, because 10 cycles is even better. And I know that. And if you go less than 10, it's even better. I've done that, zapping my body with various frequencies. Anything over 10 is no good. No, the problem is that 60 cycles will make you pass out. There's a highway in Europe, and there's a tree line, and when the sun is setting, creating a shadow line of each tree, and if you drive at a certain speed, the shadow line hitting the eyeball as you drive down the highway has actually statistically made it very highly likely that people pass out at the wheel and have accidents on the road. So we know 60 cycles, and they figured it out. It's the speed, and the shadow line was hitting them at 60 cycles a second. So we know that 60 cycles is not good for the physiology, yet we use it. I think we're hell-bent on a destruction. We're so destructive. So we need a different AC cycle, or throw away the AC cycle altogether. If Nathan Stubblefield's Earth Collector could power both AC and DC motors, AC and DC loads, including, AC-DC inductive loads, then why shouldn't we go with Nathan Stubblefield's line of development? But just use what we've learned everywhere else and see if we can implement it in Nathan Stubblefield's methodology so that we can bring that up to higher degrees of efficiency and performance, but still keep it ergonomic to nature. And, when he buried his devices, that would satisfy the FCC, because it's buried. Whatever the tree puts out is not going to be anything other than what nature puts out already. So, and most of it's going to be put out underground anyway, and some segment is going to reach the leaves of the tree and the stems and the branches and be broadcast through the air, but it's all going to be part of nature, and it won't get the FCC involved, hostile-wise. So going the path of nature works. It's the safe way to go. This is why I want to think this thing out completely. But studying Tesla's trimetal generator is actually working now to look at Barbaso and Leal, because Barbaso and Leal are doing something they don't even understand, or they haven't told us, one way or the other. It's the iron core transformer core that's the source of all the energy. Everything else surrounding it is simply setting it up so that it can give us what we want, the amperage that we're going to burn. We're going to burn up and use. It's going to give us the amperage we want in the format that we want it. But everything else is just the setup. But how can that be? How can that be a magnetic coupling if the wire between the iron grounding rods and the iron core, transformer core, is copper? Unless what's being transferred is not a magnetic field, obviously, but a signature. So that each device in its operation has its own signature wave. And the Earth is adjusting. And the ability for the Earth to adjust is the number of grounding rods. Because if the magnetic field is weak, the Earth ain't paying attention there. It's as if magnetic field is awareness or attention. And the Earth has its attention on all the hot spots that have stronger magnetic fields, and in the red and pink zones, while in the blue zones it's asleep. It's not even paying attention. How many times your body, forgets about the scar and doesn't bother to regenerate? It just lets the scar there. I say, well, I'm ignoring that. Well, that's what the Earth is doing. So unless you get the Earth's attention, might be disaster to upset the magnetic field. I don't know. That could disrupt things. But you just need a bigger net, and the spread of the number of numerous grounding rods is like a net, like you're fishing for fish. You just need a bigger net to catch the fish, to catch the weakness of the magnetic field, because you're trying to couple. You're trying to couple your device to the Earth. That's all it is. It's a coupling feature. Because ultimately you have to work with the Earth anyway. Even though we are just helping to destroy it by using frequencies that are not natural, yada yada. Yet we still, in order to get energy from the Earth, we have to couple ourselves to the Earth and work with it. And so, what's the sacrifice to do that? In devotion to the Earth, number of grounding rods. So that's an act of service, an act of devotion, an act of sacrifice of convenience, if you will, as to how many grounding rods we got to pound in the Earth to make up for the lack of the Earth's attentiveness to our needs in that particular locale that we are living in, if there's not a strong magnetic field there. So a magnetic field just simply indicates the ability for the Earth to couple to our device, or our device to couple to the Earth when we ground. So if we focus on coupling, how can we get the device to couple to the Earth? Then we'll only need one grounding rod. Maybe no grounding rod, just in the vicinity of the Earth, like 6 inches away from the surface of the Earth. Or something along those lines. You get the picture. It's all relativistic to how well do we couple to the Earth's iron mass and make that iron mass work for us. Because if we couple to that, don't we have unlimited supply of amperage? Holy crap. And the only thing missing is how well would the circuit handle it without burning itself up. Which is what all these free energy devices do. They must couple to the earth. It could be. They only do one thing, just they do it in various ways. Unless they're a closed system. But none of them are if they're over unity. They can't possibly be closed. Alright, so there's more than one way to act as a porthole, and iron is just one of them. A battery is the other, apparently, and that's why John Bedini used batteries so extensively. That's right, he said the free energy event occurs inside the battery when it's regenerating, which is not recharging. So a battery is another porthole, and radioactive elements is a third porthole. So we got 3 portholes to choose from so far. And that's just a short list. The list probably is very extensively long and probably without limit. Probably. And each item of interest requires its own protocol for addressing it to make it work as a porthole for free energy. So Bedini focused on his methodology because he focused on using the battery. Well, Tesla apparently focused on iron. So my experiments over at earthinglife.info are not a joke. They're just very primitive, that's all. And I just had no idea how to take it to the next step. I took it as far as I could and I just left it there. Because I couldn't imagine how to take it any further. But Barbaso and Leal, I think, gives some hints, and I think Nathan Stubblefield gives a few, if you can figure anything of what he's done out. But the Barbaso and Leal is an operation, is a system that works. It's just a question of what's going on there, and what of it is applicable to Tesla's trimetal generator. Because I still think the trimetal generator is predicated on the functionality of the 3 elements involved, and so you just have to get familiar with each one. What are the salient features of iron? What are the salient features of aluminum and copper to make full use of them in a coordinated fashion? And it's not as simple a thing as ferromagnetism, diamagnetism, and paramagnetism. It's more than that. Or it is the same thing if you fully understood what those 3 terms mean, and I don't know at all what they mean. But so, taking it from square one, just starting with simple basics, iron. What does it do? Copper. What's it capable of? And then just using it in the circuit to maximum advantage if you know what purpose it serves. So if the iron is the porthole, what's the aluminum for? Encapsulation, immunization. It's a reflector, according to Mr. Dort, Jr., quoted by William Line. It's the reflector, or reflective. So it should serve. Oh, one good little point to bring up before I forget. When I studied the 1910 I-10 meter from General Electric, the watt-hour meter, the Bakelite insulation is on the outside of the chassis. It's got an aluminum shell in the front that has a glass porthole to look through, to look at the meter reading. And on the back end is a cast iron case. But both the aluminum barrel, I should call it, in the front, not a shell, it's a barrel with the aluminum window, and the cast iron backing are both Bakelite sealed on the outside. Whoopsie! That is not what Richard Hackenberger figured out how to do on his chassis of the later development of the EV Gray motor after the FCC raid. He put the insulation on the inside. If he put it on the outside, that's... Oh, wait a minute. It might get in the way. Maybe it has to communicate with the outside atmosphere. I don't know. It had to flush air through the interior, and the interior was highly insulated so that all the parts composing the floating plates of that umbrella capacitor surrounding the circuitry do not short out with each other. Plus, he had to flush air as well, because it was very highly buildup of electrostatic charge. So it's quite possible that we have it backwards, that the insulation should not be on the outside of the electromechanical watt-hour meter, the Bakelite insulation, but on the inside. if we're to use the chassis to the advantage that it's supposed to be. So it's not enough to just say it should be made of aluminum. The insulation has to be on the right side. On the interior, not on the exterior. And then the support pieces in the AV Gray motor, the aluminum supports for the coils, let's say it's rotor coils, I can't remember which, they were insulated where they sat into, where they were seated into the interior structure of the AV Gray internal structure, so that their contact with all the internal structure did not short out to the rest of the structure, obviously, because you don't want that to happen, or else it would short out your capacitance. But I think it's significant that those aluminum parts were supporting the coils that were going to charge them and create an imbalance between the interior floating plate of this umbrella capacitor and the exterior composed of the chassis. And that difference of charge was what was creating the extra energy. Because if the two plates were balanced, there'd be no free energy. Right? Didn't Don Smith say that balance is... didn't he say that? Balance is energy you don't get to make use of. It's the imbalance, the asymmetry that creates a situation in which you can harvest energy and make use of it. So the interior plates are highly charged up by reference to the chassis, which is not so highly charged, so long as arcing does not occur, and nor shorting either. So that's good to know, because there are aluminum parts on the inside of the I-10 watt-hour meter from 1910 of General Electric. It's just the insulation's on the wrong side, and nobody's flushing air through the inside, although I suppose the spinning disc could keep the air circulating, but is that going to prevent arcing? I don't know. There's some things that are weird. I still don't understand whether or not that particular model could be used as a tri-metal generator. I don't think so. Anyway, there's a lot to be learned to try to blend or see what's blendable between the ideology behind the mystery of the tri-metal generator of Tesla, Nikola Tesla, and the Barbaso and Leal Captor device. It stands to reason, and using the AV Gray motor as a model on how to make that blend happen, it stands to reason there might be something to be gained by conceptually blending those two conceptual models, because we know so little about Tesla's tri-metal generator, not enough for anybody to have any idea how to make it work, or construct it for that matter.